Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And this week it is a Marvel extravaganza. Just a tiny little film called Deadpool and Wolverine opened this week, and we'll be talking about that. We will also be talking about the legacy of the 20th Century Fox run of Marvel films that have now been subsumed into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But first, it's fitting that on a week where we get our lone Marvel Cinematic movie release of this year, that we also get big news coming out of San Diego's Comic-Con about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They've spent a long time kind of rejiggering things. We know we've seen the trailer for Captain America Brave New World that introduces Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk and Anthony Mackie taking over as kind of the new Captain America. That looks pretty good. That's coming to us in February of 25. But a big question ever since last year's Ant-Man 3 film, Quantumania, and the subsequent dismissal of Jonathan Majors has been, what are they going to do with Avengers Kang Dynasty, which was originally set for 2025. Well, it is no longer coming out in 2025, and guess what? It is no longer Avengers Kang Dynasty. They've renamed it Avengers Doomsday. It'll come out in 2026, followed by Avengers Secret War in 2027. They brought back Joe and Anthony Russo, who did Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, along with two of the Captain America films, to helm those. But that wasn't the only one they brought back. Eric, the big news yesterday, Robert Downey Jr., who's Iron Man,
noted that by the Russo brothers as being the only actor who could play a character like Victor Von Doom.
Yes, so that was, we last saw Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU in 2019 in Endgame as he ended his run as Tony Stark, Iron Man. Fantastic performance, a fantastic film. He is now coming back in Avengers Doomsday as Dr. Doom. And, the only thing I could think is that line from The Dark Knight where Harvey Dent says, you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Robert Downey Jr. coming back. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk the last couple of years about the struggles of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Some things haven't gone as planned. I actually liked the Marvels, but I know a lot of people thought that was kind of a flat line. I did not mind Ant-Man Quantumania. I didn't think it was incredible, but I didn't mind it. But it hasn't done incredibly well. Nothing really did well for them last year. Their 2021 slate was a little weird. It seems like they've kind of pivoted and said, we're not going back to the world of the Eternals.
Apparently, yeah.
They've reworked a lot of, I know, they've reworked a lot of things. It feels like this is the ultimate going back to try to pull back what fans like. We're going back to the last film that worked, which was Robert Downey Jr. as our star and the Russo brothers as directors. And honestly, I don't feel great about either of those decisions.
I don't feel good about any choice that is like backslide for money. I think yes, it sucks. There's a narrative here. There was an idea that they had that they were going to have Kang and they were going to have the multiverse, and they started laying the seeds and groundwork for that across Loki, across Ant-Man, and they started building up him as like they were.
I think it was mostly those two.
But the idea that people start like the movies needed to continue to be successful. Obviously, COVID destroyed a lot of people going to the movies. So I don't know if Shang-Chi or Black Widow didn't do the business that they thought they were going to do. I don't know. I don't know what happened in headquarters that made people decide that these movies aren't successful unless they make $1 billion. But somewhere along the line, between COVID and the slump after Endgame and what happened with Jonathan Majors, I'm a little concerned that the result that we're getting is just pivoting to the things that fandom has been crying for the most. Let's pivot and make it about Doctor Doom. It's like the thing that people have been rallying the most about. Like, that's who they want to see. Fantastic Four is coming. All this stuff is coming. Like, let's do Doomsday. And then, or let's do Doctor Doom. And then having Robert Downey Jr. come back. It's like as soon as he left, people were like, "Oh, when is he going to come back?" And everybody's talking about, "Oh, I don't want to see him come back because what would that do to the weight of him loss?" Well, now he's coming back, but he's not coming back because he's just going to be Victor Von Doom, which is confusing to me because there is something interesting in if this is still the multiverse saga. The idea that the hero of the Infinity Saga, the titular Iron Man, is now a variant of him. And there is like precedent for this in the comics a little bit. There is I don't remember what he's called, but an Iron Man that wears the green hood and I don't know. But the idea that it is some variant of Tony Stark makes sense, but it's not. This is a different person in a world that
we don't totally know how they'll end up putting it together. We know the multiverse part is still alive and well, not just in the movie we're about to talk about, but that is allegedly how they're bringing in Fantastic Four, which, by the way, is supposed to release exactly 1 year from yesterday. They start filming on Monday. I mean, we've talked about some of the issues with Marvel seemingly rushing some of these things. That feels, for all the weight that they're putting on a couple of these movies, to be jamming them through.
Well, Deadpool 3 had to halt production this time last summer and couldn't continue because of the writer's strike. So I thought this movie was going to be ridiculously rushed. And so we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But like, I think as long as they are shifting back to a little more pre-planning and not so much worried about having to make the movie work in post, then it's fine, right? Because you shoot the movie that you plan to make, you put it together, and it's a product that the company is excited about and that they want to put out. Hopefully that's the way that it works. I mean, you never know. It could be something that they keep working up until the last second when it comes in theaters and then they drop something. Marvel has always, since the first movie, been the infamous story of like Jon Favreau, Robert Downey Jr., and Jeff Bridges sitting in like a little workroom writing some scenes while the entire crew is set and ready to shoot for the day, and they're just like spitballing what they're going to do for the scenes that day. That's always kind of how they've worked. But I don't know. I think it just feels too transparent that they have shifted and pivoted and completely changed the direction of where this chapter of their story started and where it's going to go. And I don't know how you stick the landing with something like that. Like we're talking about unprecedented things and multi-movie storytelling. Like,
well, and I can't wait to see the new revision of what movies they're actually going to do. When I think the only ones that I've seen locked into something is, we know we're getting Captain America: Brave New World in February. Fantastic Four is supposed to be next July.
Thunderbolts.
I don't. Is that Thunder? Are they May? They're supposed to be next year. Also,
they're next year. They've been filming. So
May of 2026 is supposed to be Avengers Doomsday, and May of 2027 is supposed to be Avengers Secret Wars. So I don't know if they'll actually have anything between them. Maybe they'll only have one big tentpole release in those years. It might make sense that after that they can start over or do something over, because it seems like they've suspended or done away with a lot of even the small screen projects we were supposed to get. It doesn't seem like all those are going to come out. You know,
there's a
Armor Wars went from being Daredevil. Armor Wars went from being a potential show to a potential movie to, I don't even think they mentioned it this year. That
right.
Ironheart show seems to have disappeared along with any reference to that. You got at the end of Marvels the
show.
Potential. That show is actually coming in the fall.
Yeah.
It's set for September, but like at the end of the Marvels, you get a idea of like Young Avengers, but that doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Yeah.
So now you've had quite a succession of films that have post-credit sequences leading to a larger idea of the world that are just, dying.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that what they tried to do is after the success of Endgame, they were like, all right, let's reboot and move forward with this story into something where we're going to take this broad audience that we gained all the way through Endgame, and we're going to introduce new characters for them, and we're going to try and get young people, and we're going to try and get young Avengers that can grow up with the next generation of people, and we can do all these ambitious things. And now it seems like they're like, let's bring Robert Downey Jr. back. Let's do Doctor Doom. That's the fan favorite. Well, we finally got like the X-Men back. We finally got like the Fantastic Four back. Let's do some of our big A-list properties that we lost back in the 90s. Let's stick to what we know. Because Spider-Man 4 is the other project that we know is in some sort of development. It's just because of Sony and their connection. It's all scattered shot. So, yeah.
Well, and Sony's kind of coming down the pike to the end of their like Marvel ideas too, because Kraven the Hunter, I have zero faith in. They've moved that so many times, they can't believe in it. Morbius was kind of DOA. I don't know that they'd go back to that. And Venom 3, they very much made it clear that that's kind of the end of that franchise. So other than Spider-Verse, where they seem to be alive and well on the animated side, it seems like they're kind of that we know of.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're kind of coming to the end of what they have established too.
And will they have some sort of deal with Amazon because they're doing an actual Nicolas Cage Spider-Man noir?
Yeah. So that, that'll be interesting. Ricky, they'll likely kill the memory of Iron Man like they did Wolverine. It is. I am really. That news that landed like a turd.
That was very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, and they've continued to put out all these press pictures of him with the mask and stuff to try to build excitement. I don't know that they read the room correctly. From what I've gathered, that we're not the only ones for whom that didn't hit the way it was like.
Yeah, no.
It's not like finding out Michael Jordan unretired to come back for the Bulls.
Right, no.
Well, let's turn to this week's big movie, which was definitely a commercial success. Early report is $205 million for opening weekend, which I believe they said set a record for some kind of, they conjure their own records. So, but could it really help the creativity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Let's dive in. We are not going to do full spoilers and ruin all the special cameos. I know that if you do watch most of the internet or if you saw any of the Comic-Con reporting, they probably got a lot of it ruined. But in case you haven't and you're still planning to see this movie, Eric and I are going to be a little more judicious in how we talk about it. But this movie does bring back our favorite Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds. This is his third solo movie, first joining the MCU. The previous two were with 20th Century Fox, and that actually plays pretty large into the way this movie is constructed. In it, his universe is threatened. He gets brought in by the Time Variant Authority, the TVA, which we saw introduced through the TV series Loki. And in order to save his universe, he has to team with an old friend, finding a version of Wolverine, bringing back Hugh Jackman, who last played the part in 2017 in Logan. But this Wolverine isn't exactly like the Wolverine we've seen before. Can they get it together? Can they save the universe? Can they keep from killing each other? I think, Eric, we know the answer to those questions. I was curious, before it came out, would moving over from Fox to Disney dampen any of the more R-rated specter of the storytelling and style of Deadpool? And I think I can confidently say it does not.
Yep. I agree.
What did you think of this film?
All right, I'm going to go right off the bat, and I'm going to get the bad out of the way. I think that the plot that they tried, the actual arc, the core arc of Deadpool, what he wants and how they build that out of his relationship with the character Vanessa, played by Morena Baccarin, I think it's contrived, and I think it doesn't work for me at all. It's very bizarre to me, especially the way that they try and give that a conclusion. It's just a very odd moment. I think that this is a movie that favors spectacle over consequence because there is an entire action set piece that has fan service thrills that literally does not matter. Inside of the context of the movie, outside of the context of the movie, at the end of it, everybody heals up, moves on, and they make a joke that distracts a bunch of people, and they just walk away. And it's just like 5 minutes of screen time that is... Okay, so I'm going to skip to the good stuff. Spectacularly well realized in terms of choreography, in terms of special effects mixed with visual effects and everything that they're doing, and gives a lot out of the character Wolverine that people have kind of like begged to see. There's a quote from Deadpool where he kind of talks about Wolverine not being afraid of the fact that he's in a superhero movie, and I think that 100% to a T describes what they're doing with him here. I love the fight sequences between Deadpool and Wolverine. I again, those are the kind of things that you may try and argue that they don't matter, but they do contextually, they do character-wise. You know, there's a thing there. And that's the humor is a little horny, but you know, it is what it is. And it really worked for me. The action spectacle, that's the thing about making an R-rated movie. The conceit is you are allowed to show things you don't have to edit away from. You are allowed to be freer with your pacing because R-rated movies don't get as much scrutiny in terms of audiences having an attention span and things like that. So you're free to let scenes breathe and look the way they need to look. And I think they take full advantage of it. And I think it's spectacular. The good in this movie outweighed the bad for me, but I'm not sure what's going to happen over time for other people. Like the cameos, spectacular. I am super excited about each one that was earned, but there's still more to be said about like how much the third or fourth time do you watch this movie are you going to realize that like there's this nod to the legacy of the Fox films. I don't know how to dance around this, but I want to ask you, because this is something I may have just missed the point of, but how are those characters supposed to have gotten some kind of legacy ending? Is it by watching Wolverine and Deadpool leave them? Because they weren't freed from Cassandra Nova. That was the whole plan they agreed to support, and that wasn't done. So something so weird to me about the way they're smiling.
It was by getting a heroic ending. They knew they weren't going to make it out.
I guess.
No, you did miss that. That was part of the discussion. The heroic ending for them was to make a sacrifice to help save another universe.
Okay, good. Then it works.
They were never supposed to go with those two.
I just thought a part of it was supposed to be like whatever.
It was to go out like heroes instead of hiding.
Yeah, sure. Like I just don't know how much that's gonna feel like it has any weight over time. Like it worked for me this time, but yeah, go ahead.
So what are you? I'm assuming you're giving it a thumbs up.
It is one strong thumb up for me.
I think it's fair to say the reaction to this has been mixed. Some people have been like, oh, it was fine. There are a large group of people that are dissatisfied with it and have not liked it. And I think those are some fair complaints. You brought up some things that probably won't sit with people. I personally think this is the kind of movie where it depends on what you're looking for and how it connects with you emotionally. I've never watched the Deadpool movies for plot or for seriousness or anything like that. What I enjoy about them is there's some kind of spectacle. There's a ton of jokes. There's all these free-flowing pop culture references and some really fun, like needle drop moments. And to me, that's pretty much all this was. This was a big ingratiation into the MCU with him saying, you take your crap too seriously and I am going to dunk on you as many times as possible. There is some reverence and appreciation for the 20th Century Fox era of Marvel films, which, you know, a lot of people were happy to sweep away, but I think we will talk about in a little bit. There are some great pieces to that, and there were some really fun aspects to that that shouldn't be forgotten. You know, not all of their films are great, but honestly, we've seen enough to know that not all of the MCU films have been great. So there was some fun there. The iconic pairing between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. We know how much they're actually friends in real life, and you know that earned chemistry comes across on screen. I love the way they break the fourth wall. I mean, there are times that are personal references to the actors. They dunk on Hugh Jackman's personal life and professional life a couple of times, which were really great, both in musical numbers that pop up on the radio. I don't know if there is a Greatest Showman song that pops up in there. They made some casual references to his life. Ryan Reynolds does the same thing to himself. I mean, he very freely dunks on his performances. Nice. There's one place where one of the people he's fighting accidentally touches him in an inappropriate place, and he says, "If you don't stop it, I'm going to have to tell Blake." That is not a Deadpool comment. Yeah. That is a Ryan Reynolds name-checking his actual wife. Those kind of things I find thrilling. I loved the opening sequence, the choice of music, the weird dancing, the way that fight scene conveys. There are a number of incredible needle drop music moments. I laughed a lot with this, and that was all I was looking for. I do think while I have enjoyed the MCU probably more than others, even films that probably weren't top shelf, it does take itself way too seriously in almost every project, and this wasn't serious at all. And I did appreciate that. It had a few earnest emotional moments for Wolverine and some of these characters that I thought were nice, but it was mostly a lot of fun, and I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. I actually thought a lot more people would probably love the movie after I went to a critic screening, and I'm pretty sure that we all liked it a lot, although I've seen some of their scores, so not everybody was as thrilled as I was. But I loved it. It worked for me. I understand that it's not going to work for everybody, and art is subjective much more than most critics even like to admit. It is very subjective, and I think this is going to work for you depending on what you want out of a movie and how it hits you emotionally and how it hits the kind of things that you like. And these are the kind of Ryan Reynolds movies that I like. So
it's worth pointing out that Hugh Jackman gives an outstanding performance. He sells that he's not the same Wolverine. He sells so much. But that's the thing is, I think I agree with you that the movie should be fun in its way. Like that's what it does best. And the more emotional moments with Wolverine work. They work very well. And I think his arc works fairly well too. But it's like Marina Baccarin, and that it's the other things that they try to take seriously that like don't work for me. I think if they had dispensed with some of the things that were a little more like trying to be not ambitious, but like Deadpool's idea of wanting to matter. You know, like I don't know if I need that, or if they were going to do it. I think they should have made that stand on some stabler ground. But no, from bye 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 all the way through the end credits, the movie works on a different front than other. It's having fun as a movie, as an action movie, and it's having fun in celebration of a lot of other movies. Yeah, it absolutely is about having fun with a huge premise.
So another big aspect of the film is its celebration of the 20th Century Fox era of Marvel. For those that don't know, Disney purchased 20th Century Fox, which allowed them to get the rights back, which is why we're getting a new MCU version of the Fantastic Four, why we can have Wolverine and Deadpool in an MCU film, and some of these other characters that had been loaned out. There are funny things. I think if anyone's seen any of the trailers, they have an old 20th Century Fox sign in a kind of a graveyard as a backdrop to one of their fights. But there are some earnest moments where they celebrate. So before we get out of here, I thought it would be good to talk about this 20th Century Fox version of Marvel. They really had all the early X-Men films, starting kind of X-Men 2000. There were 3 X-Men films, and then 3 standalone Wolverine films, and then 4 with a X-Men a younger group film. So that's quite a few. There have been 3 different Fantastic Four films, 2 with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans in the lead. Then they tried to reboot it. None of them spectacular. We had Elektra, we had Daredevil, we had Blade, we had the new
Blade
Mutants.
was New Line Cinema, but yeah.
We had the New Mutants. So a lot of different takes on some of these characters and world. Eric, what will you remember, and what do you have that because you like it or for irony's sake?
I have the second one because I like it. But no, I honestly, these are all formative for me. In 2004, I was 13 when this came out. And it was brand new. Spider-Man was 2 years old. Superhero movies were just becoming a big thing that they are today, and they still hadn't gotten that grand explosion that Iron Man brought. So, I am always, speaking of that, going to come down and fondly on 2003's Daredevil. I do prefer the director's cut to the theatrical cut, which you can't even get unless it's on DVD anymore. If you're watching Daredevil anywhere, you're watching the director's cut, and for a good reason. That movie introduced me to my favorite superhero of all time. I wasn't aware of the character Daredevil until I saw the movie. So I was in a fortunate position where I could take all of the cool ideas of the character from the movie, and that takeaway introduced me to the comics and the story and all that kind of things. And then I look back on it and I recognize, oh, that's why certain things are bad and whatnot. Also, again, 2003, so I was 12 years old. So then they tried to follow this up in 2005, and this one I own just as a sort of weird sense of needing to complete something. Like, they released these kind of together, and it's I can't even I don't even know how to speak to it. I think it's so I will forget Elektra. I will remember Daredevil. Fantastic Four movies I'm split on, and then there's the X-Men movies. There's 11 movies, including New Mutants. And the highlights are, I think, Days of Future Past, Logan, the first 2/3 of the Wolverine, X-Men 2. And I guess I'll throw the first X-Men in there. Everything else, I like some other things more. But if I'm going to say save some, drop some, those are the ones that I would save. The others I can go without. It is massive. There is so much that they have done. And that's not even all of them. And this is a 2-movie pack and a 3-movie pack. And it is bizarre how long this has been going for decades and surviving. And there is something really touching about thinking back at the legacy of these things and how much things have grown and how the things that we like have grown on the backs of this lack of success of the things we don't like. And I think that makes one cameo in particular, and we'll probably talk about it after this, absolutely crucial to the tone of this movie working. But that's my rundown on that whole thing. What about you?
Yeah, I will never forget seeing the original X-Men film in theater and how excited I was. I was a big X-Men cartoon fan. Um, those of you who have followed me long enough know that Batman is by far and away my favorite superhero. But second, and by a long shot, is Wolverine. I loved watching those X-Men cartoons, and I loved seeing it come to life. And you're right, it feels like it hit during a time where you didn't have the big influx of superhero movies, because the quest for peace killed Superman in the 80s, and George Clooney killed Batman in the mid 90s and
Yeah.
mid 90s. And this was, that X-Men movie came out 2 years before Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. A lot of people talk about Spider-Man kicking off the modern superhero run, but for me, it's always going to be that X-Men film. I thought it was a blast. I still remember seeing that in theaters. I went during the summer after my first year in college, so it was a lot of fun. And I've, last weekend leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine, I went through all three of the first X-Men films, all three standalone Wolverine films, and both Fantastic Four films with Evans and Alba.
So
and
two is better than one, right? Even if you don't like either of them.
No.
Okay.
No, that Silver Surfer movie is an abomination. They both suck, but
all three of them suck. There's only one I don't.
Yeah, I actually think the reboot of Fantastic Four is the worst of the three. I think that's how I have them ranked, actually, too. There are some dreadful. I don't care for X-Men Origins Wolverine. I really didn't like the Wolverine either. I thought that the opening credits are cool, and when I was rewatching it, I was like, wait, maybe I was too hard on this. I really like this opening credits. I like the vibe they're going for.
The whole movie should have been the opening credits.
Then they got 20 minutes into it, and I was like, right, now I remember why I doxed this one. I wish I could put my eyeballs out halfway through. But
by the time Wolverine is clawing that ladder down that Gambit is running on, I'm done. Like,
all those movies are so bad. Oh no, I'm talking about the Wolverine. Like X-Men Origins Wolverine, I didn't think was ever really good, but the Wolverine, the beginning, like the tone and some of the style from Mangled and stuff. Yeah, I kind of like that. But
somebody pointed out to me
halfway through when they get there after the I couldn't get past like the weird Jean Grey vision dreams, and then after that guy dies, I'm like, this is on the slow train. Now I remember why I hated this, and I get to the end and I'm like, oh, I hate this so much right now.
Viper and Silver Samurai and all that. Somebody told me that there's a red flag in that movie that we all should have caught from the beginning. So if the beginning is ever getting you again, try and remember. Wolverine shouldn't know what a nuclear bomb is. That's the first time one was ever used in human history. So when he's trying to save the guy and protect him and keep him underneath of like a barrier and like take the explosion himself and all this stuff, he has no idea what he's doing.
That's a good point. Look, the idea of him being heroic and the setting and the look, I've forgotten that James Mangold made that and Logan, because one of them I love and one of them I cannot stand, which is fascinating. So you talked about the highlights. I actually liked, I enjoyed the original, and I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for the original X-Men movie because of the time I saw it. But probably the top three for me, if I was going back to that era, X-Men First Class is one of my favorite films of all time. It was in my top 50 personal favorite films of all time. I love the back and forth between McAvoy and Fassbender in that movie, and some of the philosophical things. That was always one of my other favorite parts of X-Men, is the relationship between Eric and Charles. And I thought they really nailed it in that movie. Logan, I think that is a beautiful movie. I know a lot of people have been more than a little upset with Deadpool and Wolverine, thinking it ruins the legacy of that film. I didn't personally feel that. They do some wild things at the beginning. I didn't really think it doesn't ruin that movie for me. I still love that movie, and I actually think it pays off some things in a certain way. But I I loved it. I watched it over again last weekend, and that was the one like bright spot of Wolverine Fantastic Four watching. But the other one, I did enjoy X-Men Days of Future Past, where it brought the two kind of generations together. Almost reminded me of Star Trek Generations in that way, where you had like the next generation and the original cast kind of crossing over through time and fixing things. And that was also a central role for Wolverine. I love the way that one went. It's just I kind of enjoyed Apocalypse. Dark Phoenix, though, my God, I actually think that is the worst superhero movie ever made. I went through, and I actually have that as the bottom of the bottom. It was between that and Halle Berry's Catwoman, and I was like, Catwoman at least has some redeeming qualities, like that basketball sequence.
No way. Okay. One day we'll have like a debate episode where, for absolutely no reason, I will defend Dark Phoenix. It is not a defensible movie. Okay, it's not worth going to bat for. But people hate that absolutely okay.
It's
movie.
me. I'm people.
No, you're not the only one. I had to have a conversation about this last night where people are like, the thing is, I can pick out a few like horrendous moments. I think. Well, we'll talk about it some other time. But again, it's not worth going to bat for. But one day we'll do it. That'll be a conversation sometime.
Yeah, I was looking forward to them redoing the story because I think it's a good comic story, and I didn't love X-Men Last Stand because how could you? Because they make some choices there that are
angry at Superman,
that are not great. What Bryan Singer didn't do it though. That was Brett Ratner.
I know that's why they were mad. That's why they killed Professor X, is because of the scheduling issues that were brought up from Bryan Singer leaving. James Marsden
did Cyclops dirty.
Yeah, James Marsden was playing a character in Superman Returns for Bryan Singer, right. So they killed him off. Like a lot of the dumb things in Last Stand are because they're angry about Superman.
Anyway, that movie's not great, but it looks like a 5-star Academy Award winner compared to Dark Phoenix. Simon Kinberg shouldn't be allowed to make superhero movies.
Hans Zimmer's score alone for Dark Phoenix is like, okay, that's fine.
It's just a horrendous movie. I think that's the entire reason that 20th Century Fox folded. They looked at that movie and they're like, clearly there's some point in going on, so they sold themselves to someone else.
Oh my God.
Actually, that's not their last movie. They made New Mutants, which is just kind of forgettable.
No, that came out after New Mutants. And also New Mutants was filmed years before. Oh no, you're right. New Mutants came out.
But New Mutants might have been filmed before that, but it came out after it. Yeah, I think both those films got hurt apparently by just casting Stark girls in important roles.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything else about the Requiem for 20th Century Fox Marvel?
They tried. I think they tried harder than some of the studios that had other properties from Marvel.
Yeah. Sony's been real hit or miss.
Sony has been
if you took out
really hitting with core Spider-Man.
Yeah, and not even always there. You cannot pay me. Those Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies are not much above where Dark Phoenix is in my esteem.
Oh, the first. Okay, all right, yeah. We're gonna have a big superhero battle showdown episode at some point where we just put a bunch of movies on the docket that are just like divided, and we just go head to head over them.
I think if we've learned anything from this week, it's that you need to find somebody that makes you as happy as Doggy Deadpool. Thanks.
Yes.
Deadpool.
Oh, I love the behind the scenes stuff about him having to keep like liquefied salmon in his lip to have the dog like lick him. Some of that is the funniest. The whole the whole rollout, the weirdly special thing about Deadpool and Wolverine is that it's getting the attention of a movie from the early to mid 2000s. In terms of, there was a line out the door for the showing that we went to that we had to stand in to wait to get our seats. We didn't have seat selection. There was so much buzz. The two of them went on Hot Ones. They went on that lie detector test show. There's so much you can watch out there right now of them doing the press tour.
Ryan Reynolds started marketing it during his Welcome to Wrexham show. There's one entire episode where he does all of his interviews in his Deadpool outfit from the Deadpool screening and reminds people Deadpool's coming out in July.
That's incredible. Like it's outstanding, the marketing. Like, I mean, I guess this is what they do with Disney money for marketing, you know? But it's
but
incredible.
it also helps to have two charismatic people who you can put out on the, not every film is fronted by people that you want to put on every talk show in the world.
Yeah,
probably.
Like, oh,
probably. But you know what? It was worth it. It was fun. Go check out Deadpool and Wolverine, now playing in theaters nationwide. That'll do it for us this week. Next week, we will be falling into a trap, and that will lead us down an M. Night Shyamalan road.
I'm so excited for this.
We will be talking about his latest, Trap, which opens on Friday, starring Josh Hartnett. And we will also be talking about our 5 favorite M. Night Shyamalan films.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see if we have much crossover. I'm sure we'll have 1 or 2 crossover, but M. Night Shyamalan films are so unique that it feels like people cling to them for different reasons. So that should be a lot of fun. But until then, we will see you at the movies.